Ezio is a very unique character, as in the sense it's a character that you get to know from his birth to his very old age, and even if you watch Embers, to his death. In that sense, that gave the team, the scenarists and the development team a lot of room to develop the character and many layers of the character. So of course, Ezio grows as a warrior. He's an assassin, he has that in his blood, he's very gifted, and along the game he will learn how to become a better warrior. But what is really important for us as development team is he becomes a better human. I think the most interesting aspect of Ezio development is how he grows as a man. When we start Assassin's Creed 2, he's a young, careless young man in Florence. Something terrible happens to him, he's losing his family. And from there, his motivation will be revenge. It's a very powerful motivation, but it doesn't last. He will do more encounters, and actually his motivation will shift from revenge to justice. So a bigger goal, and not less selfish than just revenge. That will be the plot of Brotherhood, but then in Revelation he's aging. He's a man looking for answers. He has lived a full life of assassin, but he's looking for understanding. And what I feel is very touching and something we really can relate to is he's looking for understanding, but he won't have all the answers. And as a wise man at the end, he will accept not to have all those answers and just having been a messenger. I think as a team we enjoyed all the characters we developed. Myself, I'm not very good at reading a script, and it's really when I play a character, when I see it in a game, that I truly understand its depth. If I had to pick one character, it will be Mario di Torre. I like this character because he's funny, he's charming, he's cheerful and loves partying and drinking. But after a while, you realize he's much more than that. He's a very strong warrior, he's a condottiero, and he's guiding Ezio to become a real assassin. So he's very important in the character development of Ezio, and he's a very likable character. My favorite antagonist for Ezio is definitely Rodrigo Borgia. Of course, he's the one that will start the whole adventure of Ezio. But maybe more importantly for me, I've always been fascinated, even before starting working on Assassin's Creed, by the Borgia family. This family is a representation about what Renaissance is. It's actually a time of change, a time of fight for power, but it's also a time of freedom and bigger-than-life characters. Rodrigo, Cesare, and Lucrece Borgia are those characters. So it was important for us to live Ezio's life from birth to death. From birth, it was very important for our creative director, Patrice Desilets, to really experience that in gameplay. For the player to feel he was really a survivor. And that's what Ezio is about. He's a survivor at his birth, and it will be a survivor after the death of his whole family. Then, of course, we became ourselves attached to the character, and we really wanted to tell his full story. And that's even the reason for Embers. Embers, that is the short movie that comes after the trilogy, and that will tell you the story of Ezio, the last moment of his life when he's 65 in Florence. Maybe it's because of the time period itself. Renaissance is so interesting, there are so many stories to tell, and it changed our history so much that we actually wanted to have the full life of Ezio to explain. First, the beginning of the Renaissance in Florence and Venice, then the center of power in Rome, and going to the east, talk about Constantinople. That's one of the reasons for the trilogy, is that to tell as many stories as possible about the Renaissance. So for us, both story of Ezio and Desmond are very important. After all, the whole franchise is about the relationship between the present and the player and the past. Both characters have a very similar arc. They evolve the same way. They both have powers and they learn how to master them. And at the end of the day, I think the encounter between Ezio and Desmond is one of the highest moments in the series. It's very difficult for me to pick one game in the trilogy. They are all very enjoyable to make, and at the end of the day, after spending so much time in production, over 3 or 4 years, I have the feeling they are all the same game and they are all in the same continuity. Maybe if I had to pick one, AC2 was actually very challenging. It came after the huge success of AC1, and from scratch we decided to redo a lot of things in the game. We redid most of the AI and we brought a lot of depth to the gameplay and a lot of new systems. So it was a very challenging production, but at the end of the day the team has so much passion and so much engagement that I'm still very proud of this game today.